Okay, so we're on page 455. So it says, when dividing by decimals, change the divisor into a whole number. To do this, multiply both the divisor and dividend by the same power of 10. Then divide as with whole numbers. So when we divided, we're behind a day from what I sent. We had, so you're good. When we divided just decimals by a whole number, all we had to do was bring the decimal up. When we divide a decimal by a decimal, we have an extra step. Okay, so the example that we're going to work on says Casey is 4.5 feet tall. Her brother Jerome is 6 3/4 feet tall. How many times taller is Jerome than Casey? So we're going to find 6 7/75 divided by 4.5. So here's where I'm going to use my notebook because I don't like how they set it up in there. So we're doing 6 75 divided by 4.5. Okay, so it said that we would divide, if we have a decimal in the divisor, that we would divide both the divisor and the dividend by the same power of 10. So this is what we are doing. The point is to get rid of the decimal in the divisor. Okay, so we have 4.5 in the divisor. What power of 10 could we multiply 4.5 by to turn it into a whole number? Not by 1, but by 10. 10 to the first power is what you're telling me. I understand. So by 10. Right? And if we divide 4.5 by 10, that would have us move this decimal 1 time into this position and give us 45. Right? So if we did the same thing, if we do that to the divisor, we have to do it to the dividend. So we would have to do that here as well. Right? And so we would, times 10 would move that decimal 1 time, and that would give me 67.5. So then we would be dividing 67.5 by 45. Now you don't have to do all of this work all the time. This is not the work you will show me. I just want you to understand that when we move the decimal, we are multiplying by powers of 10. Right? That's what allows us to just move the decimal. We can't just move it willy-nilly. Right? This is what allows us to move the decimal. So what your work is going to look like in your on your assignment, I mean, you can do this work right here if you want to, but what it'll look like when you do this as an assignment is you look at the divisor first and you go, okay, 4.5, that has a decimal in it. So I need to move that decimal all the way to the end so I can get rid of it. So I'm going to move it from here to here, and it's going to give me a 45. Right? I just have to make sure that I move it to the end. And then I count how many times how many spots did it have to move. In this case, it only had to move 1 spot. Okay? If now it's here, right on the outside. But I don't have to put it when it's on the outside, right? Because the whole number. Good question. So if I move it in the divisor, then I have to also move it in the dividend. So I moved it the same number of times. I moved it 1 time out here. So now I'm going to move it 1 time in here. And it's going to give me 67.5. And then I can move it straight up. And now I just have division like we did last week. So how many times can 45 go into 67? 1 time. 45 times 1 is 45. Subtract. I get 22. Bring down my 5. And how many times can 45 go into 225? We will get divisors that have these double digits. I may have to do multiplication scratch work. I don't know my 45s. I don't know, in your classwork, you get a 78. I don't know my 78s, right? So I have to do the scratch work. So how many times do you think 45 will divide into 225, Bella? 5 times? Well, let's try that out. So I would do my scratch work. 5 times 5 is 25. Carry the 2, that's 20. And it's perfect. So I would put my 5 times up here. 45 times 5 is 225. Make it 0. So my answer would be here 1.5 times. Why can you? Or what? I don't understand what you're asking. Why? Because I'm like keeping it balanced by multiplying them both by the power of 10. That's why I have to do it the same on both inside and outside. That's what I'm saying. You can't just move decimals around anywhere that you want, right? There has to be a mathematical like thing going on, right? Christian, I'm sorry. I knew your hand was up for a long time. Go ahead. You have to move the decimal. The answer to that is you have to move the decimal. Okay, so let's fill it in your book if you didn't already.
Wait, we're only doing odds?
And then it wants us to multiply to check. So I would go back and I would multiply my original dividend. I'm sorry, my original divisor. So 4.5 times my answer. Placeholder. One, two, 1, 2. Right, so I would multiply to check with my original divisor, the one that's from the original problem with the decimal, times my answer, times my quotient. Okay. All right, let's look at the next example on 456.
Wait, what's the page 455?
Mm-hmm.
So then 0, then becomes
Can you get it from Chloe for me, please?
5, 4.
Can you get it from Chloe for me? Just do that. You can multiply that. All right, page 456. Go sit down for me, please.
So 6.75.
Yeah. All right, so this one is to find 6/100ths divided by 1.5. Okay. So 6/100ths divided by 1.5. So first thing I have to look at is there a decimal in the divisor? Yes. How many times will I have to move it to get it to the end? Show me with your fingers. How many times do I have to move it to get this to the end on the divisor? 1 time. It's going to come here, right? So that's going to make it a 15. In the dividend, inside the house, it is okay if I still have a decimal in the house. I am not trying to get rid of it inside. I am only doing it the same number of times as I did on the outside. So I moved it 1 time, so I'm going to move it 1 time to right here, which is going to give me 0.6. It's okay to have that decimal in the dividend. And I'm going to bring that decimal up. And then I divide. How many times can 15 divide into 0? 0 times. Some people like to see 15 times 0 is 0 with the subtraction so that they keep their steps in order. Bring down my 6. How many times can 15 divide into 6? 0. 0 times 15 is 0. Subtract. I get my 6. I cannot have that dangling down there. So what do I have to do? Annex a 0. So I'm going to annex the 0 here and bring it down next to the 6 to create a 60. And how many times can 15 divide into 60, Hasten? How many? 4. So if I don't know my 15s, I want to check that on the side. 5 times 4 is 20, carry the 2. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. So that's exactly right. And so my answer is 4/100. Multiply to check. I take my original divisor, which was 1.5, times my answer, 0.04. This is my check. Drawing a blank. 5 times 4 is 20, carry the 2. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 2 is 6. Right, and then those are all zeros. So I have here, I don't need to multiply all my zeros. I need to count the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 decimal. Annex my 0 in that spot, and I got 0.60. Does that match? Yes, so I am correct. Okay. Thank you. Fill it in on your book. Yeah. Hold on. Okay. All right, on your whiteboards, I want you to please do number 2, which is 66/100 divided by 3/10. So I'm going to pause my video here. Please try that one on your own, and I'll be right back. All right, so you had some time to try that one. Let's look at it. So the first thing I have to look at is there a decimal in the divisor? There is. So I have to move it 1 time, which is going to give me a 3. Notice how I rewrite it, because if I don't rewrite it, I have like a big decimal moving mess. And it's hard to divide in a decimal moving mess. So rewrite your problem after you have moved your decimal. And since I moved it once here, I need to move it once here, which gives me a 6.6. With that decimal coming straight up. Now I can divide. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. The division part on this one was easy, right? Is the decimal we had to worry about. Bring down the 6. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. So I should have gotten 2 and 2/10. Okay, try number 3, please. 16 and 5/10 divided by 3/100. You guys, how many times does the decimal have to move on this one? Show me with your fingers. How many times does the decimal have to move? 2 times to get it at the end of that 3. That's going to cause a problem in my dividend. Can you figure out how to solve it? Okay, so we have to move this decimal 2 times to make that a 3. And if I move it 2 times on the dividend, I have to move it 2 times. On the divisor, I have to move it 2 times on the dividend. So that gives me 1650 with my decimal out there. Now I divide. How many times can 3 go into 16? 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. Get a 1. Bring down the 5. How many times can 3 divide into 15? 5. 5 times 3 is 15. Get a 0. Bring down my 0. How many times can 3 divide into 0? 0. 3 times 0 is 0. Okay.